Nuditea. We're not titties.
Titties?
We need titties.
Titties. I thought maybe we would talk. Okay.
What's the Lord of the Rings song? Quick.
No, we should do dun 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 dun. This Game of Thrones is really big right now.
That's my Game of Thrones. You're doing Empire Strikes Back.
Dun 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 dun.
Yeah. Thank you for saving me because
I hope that your graphic, like your animation, is just the all of it.
Everyone, give me your pits.
Where's your
fan them out.
Oh, there's your Google. Welcome. You're listening to Nuditea, a podcast where we get naked with our feelings while drinking tea. I'm Kimberly.
And I'm Wendy, and in this podcast we talk about a lot of life things. We like travel, we like food, sometimes we have special guests. Today we have a very special guest, another one of Kim's siblings.
As you can tell.
Yes, it's basically copy and paste. Loren, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure, I would love to. So my name is Loren Wattam. I am Kimberly's older sister by 4-ish years and Wendy's friend.
I'm kind of adopted into the family, so also a little bit my older sister, although not copy and paste.
So we're all family, the community of sisters.
What tea are we drinking today? Actually, only
I
can
you
answer
know.
this question.
Yeah, only you can answer this.
So this is a Chinese tea. I believe it qualifies as a white tea, whitish green tea. It's called Tie Guanyin. I don't have the English translation. For that, I apologize. Loren brought us some beautiful pastries that we sang the Lord of the Rings. No, Game of Thrones intro song to earlier.
Yes.
I'm looking for.
Yes, all I could think about today was like, I can't go empty-handed. First, that's just like rude.
You were the first guest to bring anything to us.
and second, it's a tea party. You need to have like tea, and it's a perfect time. It's like 3 p.m. Tea time.
It's tea time. Mm-hmm. The topic for today is long-distance relationships. Right now, I am currently in a long-distance relationship, and so is Loren. Mm-hmm. Kim is not
single.
Yeah, single and ready to mingle.
And she will now decide if she wants to have a long-distance relationship or not, based on this podcast.
Talk. I thought we'd bring Loren in and have a little discussion about some of our feelings. This is going to be a very feels-heavy talk about how we deal with being in long-distance relationships, if maybe we have our own little tips and tricks to help us get over how terrible it is. It's terrible. That's the take-home point for today. You can stop watching. Long-distance relationships are terrible.
And I'll just say a sentence here and there. I'm really not necessary for
I
this
told
episode.
Kim to be the mediator for today.
We'll see.
Cool.
And I'm looking forward to this because I'm thinking of this free therapy.
Oh yes.
Talking out the issues. Meeting with somebody else who has.
And we've never actually had this conversation together.
She doesn't really have this conversation with me. I'll be like, do you need to talk about it? She's like, no.
You wouldn't understand.
No.
No, she doesn't do that. She just probably
wants
to deal with it in her own head first.
And that's something we can talk about.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I thought we'd begin by giving a very surface level intro to what our actual situation is. So my partner and I are engaged, and we're doing our PhDs in very different places. Whew. I'm in Canada. He is in the US. We're about a 2-hour flight away from each other. And we've been together for about 2 years now. It's a very fast-paced relationship, if I say so myself.
With your past record, yes, this is very fast.
Yes. So we're just dealing with not seeing each other very often because of school and the distance, cost, etc.
So not super different from Wendy. I think the main thing is I have a partner. We have known each other for 3 years, and we would kind of say that that's also equal time of dating, just because when we met each other, we were overseas, and then after spending a little bit of time together, we were apart, and we decided that we didn't like being apart, so then we decided to be together. So that's still about 3 years ago. But in that time, we have lived in so many different countries. So it's very international relationship. He's originally from South America, but both of us have worked outside of our countries, and that has meant that he is in one country, whether that's like Africa or Mexico, because of work. We've worked with NGOs before. And so at the moment, present day situation is that he is in the South Sudan and I am in Canada, which is not an easy situation. Not really that different, because apart is apart. The only thing is that we have a time difference. So that's something we can maybe talk about, the difference between time and accessibility and things like that. So yeah, we've had, I would like to say 40% of our relationship has been when we've been physically together, and then the other 60% has been distance. I don't know. I would like to hear your...
Well, I've been holding that in this whole time.
Oh, you're so nice.
Kim got me sick. If everyone remembers, Kim was sick in the last episode, and then she gave it to me, and I'm recovering now, so I feel a lot better. But the cough for both of us, we're still coughing, and it's disgusting.
But I want to hear percentage-wise, just out of curiosity, how much time have you guys physically spent in the same space?
Oh my goodness.
As a rough estimate.
Okay, so let's say within a year we get to see each other. Worst case scenario, every 4 months. And in those every 4 months, I like to do at least a 2-week trip to make it feel like it's worth it. I'm really lucky because my research, my PhD work is all done on the computer, so I don't have any actual wet lab work, so I don't have to be physically in the lab. Thank goodness, because otherwise I wouldn't have this kind of time. So 3 times a year, 2 weeks at a time. So like 6 weeks in total.
It's not much.
Out of the entire year.
That love, it burns strong.
Yeah, it sucks. It sucks.
Have you had long distance before, or is this your first?
I've had things in the past where I thought was a long distance relationship.
Yeah.
The biggest long distance relationship that I had previously was when I was kind of talking to this guy, and he was in Toronto and I was in Guelph. It was an hour commute, and I was like, oh, this long distance thing, so hard. But now I'm thinking back, I'm like, it was only hard because I was putting in so much effort into trying to be together, spend time together, and he was putting in no effort. So that's what made it hard. If it had been any other situation, maybe it wouldn't have felt like a long distance relationship. So that's the most experience I've had with it, and I gotta say, I was real shitty. I did not handle it well. Even before that, in my previous serious relationship, even when we left for vacation to go home for Christmas or something, even those 2 to 3 weeks, I was still kind of bitchy.
I feel like I'm a little bit, looking back, a serial long distance relationship haver.
No.
Awful. And I don't try to do that. Just like my first ever real relationship was just before university, and because of that, when I went to university, like you, it wasn't like a ridiculous distance. It was 3 hours, but I didn't feel like it was worth it, so we didn't end up very long in the long distance thing. And then I had a big break from dating, and then my next boyfriend. That's the thing, though,
right?
Yeah.
People always, it's kind of like the stereotype that long distance relationships don't
work. Exactly.
Yeah. So your next boyfriend
was also like long distance, but it was a shorter relationship, and yeah, so I just feel like I don't even know what it feels like to have somebody live around the corner from me. So I feel like I'm experienced, but also hate it constantly. So back to what your original question was.
Do you guys, you're primarily the ones who fly out? And does that make it worse? Do you feel like you're putting in more of the effort?
Because my partner is a Chinese citizen, and there's like some weird stuff with his visa. He's legally in the US doing schoolwork, but if he leaves at any time without going back to China to renew his student visa, then they won't let him back into the US, and given the current political state, it's gonna take him a long time. So I'm actually the only one, because I'm Canadian, I go wherever I want. So I'm the only one who can fly in and out of the States pretty freely. So he's not able to come to Canada to visit. And yeah, sometimes it does feel rough because there's a lot more planning on my part. Like I have to be able to talk to my advisor to make sure there's an understanding of the goals that I want to achieve in that 2-week period while I'm away, how we're going to set up meetings, if there's anything important due, I need to have that to her in advance. There's traveling from where I'm living to the airport. For example, I'm leaving soon. I literally have to go like a day in advance to a family, friends, so that I can be there in time to catch my flight the next morning. It's a lot of work, but the nice thing about it is I'm not the only one footing the cost of the flight. So we've had a discussion and we've decided that we'll alternate who pays for my flights to him, basically. Yeah. So it's hard, but I don't feel like super burdened by it. It's just, I just have to deal with it. And I can't blame him for not coming. He literally just cannot come.
Physically come. And I, on the other hand, have struggled a ton with this concept, but have very similar situation in that my partner can't easily travel without a visa. So coming up to Canada is not, a spur of the moment, buy a ticket, come up, leave it an open-ended situation. So for me, it's easier for me to travel. It's easier for me to, at this time, get the time off work. But it's a big mental game for me. Just that feeling of like our relationship is so dependent on my commitment to do the traveling, right? Yeah. And I'm still very happy that I have that flexibility. Like, I should be very happy about that. But it's a bit of a mind game about like, am I the one pushing this relationship and moving forward? Is that okay? Is that not okay? So I always go through a little bit of like an up and down. As an example, I wasn't planning until like a few days ago, but my partner has a holiday from his intense, crazy job in the middle of nowhere. It's going to be in an island off of Africa, which I've been to with him before and we love it. So I have decided I'm going to fly there, but the flight itself is like 20 hours one way and 20 hours back, and the financial cost, but we do try our best to split everything. So like when it comes to holiday, like we are conscious about the financial burden, but it definitely, I'm very lucky that I have the finances and the time and the will to go, because otherwise
I feel very privileged that we're able, like, just paying for flights alone, that's like a significant chunk of money, especially for you because you're going quite far,
right?
But even for me with that short flight, it's not an insignificant amount of money to me right now as a PhD student. So I feel very lucky that I'm able to.
And I don't know how you feel. Sometimes I struggle with, like, could this money be put towards our future or should we use it now? So I sometimes struggle a little bit with being like, I want to see this person right now, but this money could also be put away for what's coming for us, the reality of needing to maybe settle down and whatnot. So I do struggle also with that, which is an interesting dynamic.
I kind of have I'm kind of not quite opposite feeling, but I'm having a strange struggle with every time I go out to spend money on normal life things, like maybe I'm going to Toronto not to take a flight out to see him, but maybe I'm just going to see some friends, go eat some really good food, or just things that require spending money in my regular life. Sometimes I choose to not participate in certain friend things.
Yeah, we don't hang out outside of this house basically anymore.
I don't hang out with Kim anymore because she just goes out to eat. She's
movies.
Oh, is that what it's like not having a relationship? Being able to like
spend all the money
and enjoy like your freedom?
Yeah,
it doesn't sound so bad.
So I feel like I'm drawing a lot of funds out of day-to-day activities to be able to build a little bit of a nest of money for when I want to buy that ticket to go see him. I have found myself money pinching a little bit.
And I think what we're like, actually, you're hitting something really good. The money we spend on our long distance relationship to spend short periods of time with our partners, we save it by not having the expense of going on dates more regularly, doing things together when we're apart. Even though I would say I spend money a lot, hence like buying like yummy pastries. It's my joy because I would rather spend money on that. But I think I do save some money by not having my partner here too.
I almost forgot about the pastries. You brought it back up and I was like, started a little. I feel like the travel aspect is just something we have to get over. I'm sure other people in different situations maybe have more of a back and forth situation where they're able to just drive somewhere maybe. Yeah. So maybe that might be a little easier. I guess I could technically drive, but it would be like an 8-hour drive and just time. I don't, my butt skis would get sore after 8 hours.
Think about all the podcasts you get to listen to in the car.
Oh, I guess it's true.
Did you guys want to talk about coping? How do you cope with it or don't cope with it?
I need a lot of love and attention. I'm very high maintenance on the emotional end.
Me too.
I think that's also why long distance feels super, super crappy. It's because, do you know your love languages?
We kind of. I think we had at the beginning of our relationship talked about our love languages, but I actually feel like there's been a little bit of shake up about it. But go ahead. Let me hear yours.
So my love languages have always consistently been physical touch and quality time together, which is the worst. Like neither of those are being fulfilled in long distance relationships, and there's just not anything that makes me feel quite as nice as just being with my partner. But the way I cope is we just talk and text and FaceTime all of the time. Yeah. So every day we definitely FaceTime at least once for like
every day?
Every single day. Unless like there's something significant, like if he's out or something, if I'm out, then no. But we at least FaceTime once a day for at least a solid 15-minute chat.
Yeah, that's nice.
I just want to point out Wendy's love language is literally just for her partner. I get no hugs. I get no quality time.
Listen, sometimes I get a little tipsy and I give out hugs. Yeah. Okay? So it's hard to cope when your love languages are not being fulfilled. Yeah. People might be laughing at how dependent I am on these quizzes for love languages.
No, I think love languages are such a great place to start for any couple. Mm-hmm. Like if people listening to this, a plug, like and you have a partner that you don't know how to communicate with or don't understand why they get frustrated at certain things, I think love languages is really important. So I try my best to like think about the psychology of long distance relationships, being in one, so that I can better cope with it. I think to understand how my partner is perceiving something and how I perceive something and the way that we communicate has been huge for me, because it helps me to understand why I feel crappy at a point is to be like, okay, I feel crappy because I'm perceiving that he has different priorities today than I do, and my priority is communication and quality time. And around the love languages, I think it's really interesting because I think your love languages in long distance relationships would be so different from in-person relationships. So like when I'm with him, my love languages are definitely, if he is affectionate with me, I know he loves me. Whereas because of the long distance, I
kind of revert to words of affirmation.
Me too! Oh my gosh, we're the same!
Okay, I do want to make a point. I feel like there's such thing as different degrees to which you feel the need to communicate with a certain love language. So his love language is also quality time. He's not as emotionally needy as I am. So he needs that quality time a bit less. So sometimes I have to understand he doesn't feel the need to be on the phone with me for like 20 minutes at a time, 3 times a day. Yeah. That might be something that I feel like I need, but maybe for him, I don't want to get mad at him just because he doesn't feel like he needs that quality time together.
Exactly. So like totally the same as you in the fact that like I need to be encouraged, and even in small ways. And I don't have to actually talk to him every day as long as I feel a level of connection. So I talk to him about this all the time, is like if I feel disconnected or connected. And that just changes everything. Because for me, I think of our relationship as a day-to-day because we don't know what the future holds. So if we're not connecting or having some type of intimacy, whatever that looks like, on a couple days, within a couple days, I feel very disconnected and I feel very emotional and outside myself, and I have trouble coping. And then to cope again, I do either my psychology, I start to like rationalize all of my feelings and trying to like understand what's going on in his world and my world, so that I don't like take out on him what I'm feeling, which I do all the time. Like I take out on him a ton, and I feel like he's very patient with me. Vice versa. Vice versa, though, I feel like I communicate with him about the little things I need, and he's not very good at really listening to that. I don't know what it means, like, but like it's like learning. You don't have the same amount of time to understand or learn your partner. Like you don't get to see them on a day-to-day basis, which really hyper accelerates you understanding their personalities, their triggers, their habits. So when you're in a long distance relationship, you have to really consciously think about it. You have to think about like, I am thinking that he feels this, but really he's not feeling that. Or like there's just a lot of mind games, not in a bad way, but in like a way to cope.
Sometimes I call him and he just like sounds super distant, and then I'm like, oh, how dare you? This is our quality time together. how could you not care about her? And then I'm like, oh wait, no, maybe he's sleepy,
Yeah.
maybe he's like watching a game, there's just like a lot of other things that it could be,
But then,
and I just don't need to be so cranky about it.
But my problem is, I'm like, but don't you want to share those feelings? Like, don't you want to tell me about your bad day or why you're tired? And he's kind of like, no, it's okay. Like, he's such an internal processor. I'm a verbal processor, which really makes us a good couple. But because of that, I struggle so much with being like, well, I would really appreciate you telling me exactly how you feel at every second of the day so that I can support you as a good partner. So all these irrational things, but I do it because of the long distance.
You're like imposing your own needs on him.
Yeah, exactly. So I've learned a lot.
I've just learned not to be cranky just because I miss him. Sometimes I'm just
haven't learned that yet.
cranky, and then I'm like, oh wait, it's because I miss you.
Yeah.
So then I tell him that, and then I feel a lot better because then he's able to give me words of affirmation and send like FaceTime kisses, and it makes me feel a lot better.
Oh, he sounds
Sometimes
really
I screenshot
nice.
it and I secretly send it to my mom
Aww.
so she can see how cute we are.
That's really sweet.
He knows about this, by the way. I'm not just doing this
Yeah.
against his will.
Do you find your crankiness like bleeds into? Have you ever like been cranky and then talk to me? And I don't think you usually.
That only happens if I'm hangry. Like if
Yeah.
I'm cranky because I miss him, then for some reason
You're able to
I
shut it
almost
off?
take it out on him.
Yeah,
Which is very a terrible thing to do, and I've tried to keep that under
I
control.
don't know if
a lot
it's terrible
more.
because I think like
It's not fair to them.
yeah, you shouldn't be cranky, but like they also in their like distantness is their way of coping, which can hurt us too. So like I don't know if that's how you're saying, like when he's tired and he's like distant from you in your FaceTimes, like that's not very nice either. But that's his way of coping.
Oh, I just keep him there. I just keep him there, and I force him to engage, and then that fulfills my needs, and then I let him go to sleep.
yeah.
That's my coping mechanism.
I have never been in a long distance relationship, but I feel like
Kimmy?
I'm more of an internal.
Kimmy,
I know I can't.
You fall in love. And you tell me how you feel.
Okay,
I
but
know.
it might be possible
changes,
that
it
Kim
changes.
doesn't have the same love languages.
Yeah,
For
because
sure. But
even
that's why
just-
she's not in a relationship, because she doesn't need that type of love. You need a lot of other types of love.
And that's even how we've maybe argued when we're on trips.
Yes.
You want to talk about it right away, and I'm like, can you give me like 10 minutes so
Yeah.
I can process, so I don't say anything that I can't take back or is really mean
Yeah.
and it hurts you? But you're like, no, this will like ruin part of our trip if we don't do this. So
Right.
I think I'm probably more
I'm a
like your
confrontational
partner.
girl. I like the what's wrong with confrontation?
No, I'm not opposed to confrontation,
Confrontation.
but I want to just be level-headed and try to see your perspective.
Yeah.
So I feel like, yeah.
I think for us it's the other way around. When I get angry and cranky, sometimes I need time to process and to figure out why it is I'm feeling that way. And for him, I think it's stressful because he'll know that I'm upset about something, but I'm hesitant to tell him in the moment. So then I just let him stew. He just has to sit there and think about all the reasons why I could be angry at him until I have my thoughts processed and my emotions figured out, so I can actually
And I would
communicate
argue,
with
because I don't know him, but I would argue that we think they're having like a process, but they're not.
He's not.
You might think that like through your pullback that you're helping them understand that something's wrong.
This is how I feel
But
when you're distant. No.
I don't believe it.
They're
does.
like, oh, cool.
They're just kind of like, oh, that means you're processing. Have your space. And we're like,
No!
joy.
you need to acknowledge these issues inside of me that I'm not sharing with you. It's a mind.
Yeah, I
It's
think
like,
I learned very early on that that's not
Yeah.
something that works because my partner he's just his emotions are very level constantly. He's at a constant state of content, which I am not. I am roller coastering all over that middle state, but he is constantly satisfied with life, content. He's never super moody despite hunger or stress or feeling tired. Never, ever, ever has he been moody or cranky. He's just one streamline, just constant stream across, which is almost a little bit frustrating
Oh,
for
of
me
course it's
sometimes.
frustrating.
Because I'm like doing like a tipsy-turvy thing over here by myself, and then I'm like, I need you to get riled up so we can be riled up
But
together so we can see these emotions and
in
they're
the-
so raw, but
you
it
don't
doesn't
want that.
happen.
Like that's the
Exactly.
problem is we feel like we want somebody who is like us in those
it's
ways, and then
true.
in the end it would be the least functional relationship to have
No,
somebody
and
that's
I've
like
come
us.
to appreciate the fact
But it makes it hard.
that despite how I'm feeling, he's always feeling the same level of happy. Constantly. Like, obviously, if I'm feeling sad about something, he'll show concern and empathy, but it's not like suddenly we'll both be Debbie Downers.
Yeah.
He'll always try to bring me back up to his normal level of human emotion.
Totally. Yeah.
I think I appreciate his level-headedness.
Me too.
Especially in this long-distance relationship. He's really been helping with my crazy mood swings that really are not his fault at all. But I direct them at him for terrible reasons.
Me too.
Did you want to talk about time change? Being to different time zones, or?
Oh, no, just that it's something we've done since the beginning. So we've learned how to do it. Like I'm always calculating. I should wear one of those like watches that have two little clocks on it because I'm always calculating in my head like what time is it for him? What time is it for me? Will we get to talk today because I'm at work? So that probably won't happen.
Or he accidentally calls you.
Yeah, there was like as a funny story is like he right now because of work he's got like this intense ability to just fall asleep. Like he passes out because a couple weeks ago we were having a pretty intense conversation, this emotional roller coaster that we have acknowledged we both have. Yeah. And he just stops talking and then and I was like I look at the phone and he's still on the line and I'm like, are you there? And then I hang up and I go and I text him and he receives the text but he doesn't read it. So I'm like, he fell asleep. He fell full asleep. And I was like, I can't even be mad because he didn't do it intentionally. I'm still a little bit mad. So having said that, he will often fall asleep at like midnight with the lights on, his phone by his face, and then his clothes on. And then he'll wake up around 3 a.m. and he'll be like, oh, I need to call her. So he'll call me at like 3 a.m. his time, which is so sweet because that's like 9 or 10 p.m. my time. So a nice time to talk for me. So one night he thought he was waking. Oh, he's like woke up, lights are on. He's like, oh, it's 3 a.m. or something. And so he calls me and it's like 2 a.m. for me. So I get this call from him at 2 a.m., which I'm like, has never happened. And I'm like, are you okay? He's like, yeah, I'm okay. So how was your day? And I was like, it's like 2 a.m.
Wait.
And he was just like, oh, and he looks at the clock. He's like, it's 9 a.m. here. I slept the whole night. And he's like, I think I'm going to go back to bed. And I was like, because it was like Saturday. I was like, okay, bye. Like, it was cute. But I was also like, dude, you got to check the clock
before you call.
So the time change for sure makes it more difficult. But like, we both are just trying our best to be reasonable about it.
Have you thought about, this is going to be a kind of loaded question, but have you guys thought about when you would like to not do long distance anymore, like either be together physically and have a life together, have your love languages fulfilled, or
have they had that conversation?
The other option.
That's the conversation I like to have on a monthly basis. No.
I mean, I think that's good though.
Yeah.
Like to revisit these feelings, I think is good.
And he's very good. He's just like, yes, I need to finish. He has had a 3-year contract. He met me at the beginning of a 3-year contract with this organization, which is exactly what I needed, is to fall in love with somebody who couldn't be accessible for like 3 years practically. And so he's finishing that up in the middle of this year. Okay. And so beyond that, we have plans to make this very big step of like being in the same space, not like getting engaged or anything, but being in the same space.
No, but that's
super exciting.
Huge thing to do.
We'll see how that goes. It's still very dependent on careers and priorities. So like I've been waiting for this moment for a very long time. Like I have been counting down the days and hoping that he actually would break his contract because I'm like, he knows this. I'm like, I don't want you to be there in the middle of nowhere for 3 years. Like you need so we're so close to that time and we both are hoping, but it's come pretty close to me being like, I can't do this anymore. I've been definitely like, we've taken breaks. We've had the discussion about like, why are we doing this? Because it does seem like it's gone on for a long time and whether like, what's the time frame? And yourself, like as an example, like you guys are.
The number of times I've been like, maybe I should just quit my PhD or maybe you should just quit your PhD and just come here. But like we're both too far deep and too far into our programs. We both have a little over a year-ish left. And we've both done qualifying exams. Like I did not go through qualifying exams just to quit my PhD. No. And also I feel a strong sense of loyalty and trust with my advisor. I would never betray her.
So this is my thought. If you've met doing your thing, and so that's how we've seen it, is he met me and he's like, in my past life, I committed to this and I met you after I committed. So I have to finish that commitment and then we can do our thing. And so with the PhD, with your schooling, like that's very much what you have done even before, like a lot of like your passions and careers. So like you need to finish that up, and then the next big move will be as a couple.
Oh, it will be. Oh.
It will be.
How are you not hot right now?
No, it's
Kim and I. See, like Kim and I, we just both are sweaty people.
I have a little bit of sweat, but I just feel like you guys are getting pretty like
heated. Like a waterfall.
It's like it is March and it's snowing outside. Like
I'm about to take my pants off. That's how hot I am.
Oh, go for it, girl. I actually kind of want to take a second to say two things. Or I would like us both to have a moment of saying like 3 or 4 things that are good about long distance relationships.
We always do this. Like we just talk negatively about this subject.
We always included
do you want to do this at the end?
No, we can do this and we can go into that list.
Because how about I say one and you say one, and it can be like as minimal or as maximum as possible. Because I think there are positives.
I think there are. For me, the best one, I think it's forced me to really communicate in a way that he understands exactly how I'm feeling and where my cranky or crazy feelings are coming from. And this is just setting myself up for success in the future because he's gotten really good at words of affirmation. So even in the future when we're together, I hope that translates into our relationship as well, where I'm getting my top 2 love languages, physical touch and quality time, fulfilled, as well as my number 3 love language, words of affirmation. So it's just like a perfect scenario. Yeah. Also, every time we see each other, we always like to plan like little fun things. We both love just being at home in our dumpy sweats, like watching TV and movies and eating really good food. But sometimes we like take little trips. They don't have to be big things, but they're dates that we probably wouldn't have if we were together normally. They're like a little further out. We spend like an entire day somewhere. We make a really, not a huge deal out of it, but like it's a bigger deal than a normal date would be, which I really enjoy.
I think that's wonderful. It forces you, because you have a certain amount of quality time together, to make that an amazing moment, right? You really value your time so that you actually do things that make you like have memories and like build stronger relationships. I think that's good. And the communication thing for sure. Yeah. I would say like this can be good and bad. It's very addictive because how often do you get to say hello to somebody you love on such a frequent basis? Like, yes, the goodbye is hard, but the hello is amazing. Like when you get to, especially for me, when I get to like fly a ridiculous amount of hours, get off the plane and see my partner like walk out of the airport.
That airport hug
is amazing.
That really looking forward to that.
Like I just like think, how is it that I get to like experience that feeling so often?
Distance makes the heart grow fonder.
Well, in that moment.
Yeah.
In that sometimes moment. Not so
and
much.
And then other times distance make the heart grow sad and cranky. Yeah. So
like you get a lot of highs, which is accompanied with very low lows, which are like these emotional roller coasters we're talking about. But I really do think I have had the opportunity to travel so many amazing new places with somebody who I genuinely enjoy traveling with. Like that's something I don't think we could have been a couple without the ability to travel well together. I get to like run off and do these things. I'm living my best life in certain contexts. In certain contexts, yeah. And then also I have to not shaving my legs for like 3 months at a time.
Oh, baby. It's so
amazing.
Nice. Sometimes I feel a little ashamed when I'm in the shower. I'm like, haven't shaved in like a month and a half, but like who'll know? It's winter.
And then you start to be like, I should wear a dress for work. Oh, can't do that because I haven't shaved my legs.
We've talked about this a little before with how long we're able to last before we really go crazy without seeing our partners. Yeah. And for me, it's the 4 to 6 week period. If I haven't seen my partner and it's been 4 to 6 weeks, I start to go a little loopy cakes because usually I'm able to keep my emotions. Kim is just, I'm sorry, do you have a problem with my expressions and words? No, because sometimes, usually, if it's been, I don't know, like 2 weeks or so since I've seen them, I'm able to regulate my emotions a little better. But once it gets to 4 to 6 weeks, around that period, I find myself being cranky a lot more frequently, and it's a little harder for me to bring myself down from that state. So
there's also the withdrawal symptoms you have when you come back for that week. Like I am never. And
Kimberly's actually mentioned to me before, like being like, Wendy just got back from seeing her partner,
and I'm nothing.
And she's
like,
to her. She's in such a slump.
I'm just like sad all the time, just dragging my feet around the house.
Like Wendy, she's like,
literally, I get home after not seeing Kim for 2 weeks, and she's like, "Oh, you're home. I haven't seen you in so long." I'm like, "Yeah, I'll just go to my room now."
It's funny because I'm kind of not on that same path. I'm like, be with my partner for like whatever, a couple weeks, get home, ride in that high, and then realize I'm not going to see him for like 3+ months, and then I go low. But that's like, I come home pretty happy.
And then it takes you some time to dip back down.
Yeah.
No, I dip, I come back up, I'm plateauing a little bit, and then I dip again. And the amount of time I'm actually just normal and happy.
That plateau period, my favorite period.
Kimberly, tell us how you, like, because Kimberly often, we're both, like, a little bit grumpy or a little sad. Yeah. Like, even last night, Kimberly asked me over for dinner, and I was having boy problems in my emotion center. No. And so, Kimberly, and I was just like, I don't think I'm going to come over, and she was okay with it, but she's like, do you want to talk? And I said, no. because it wasn't something I could talk out. It was just the feels.
Which
know?
I understand. I don't always talk out everything. And so I'm like, oh, she doesn't want to talk. She doesn't want to talk. If you did, and
the
like
way I talk is like I just tell Kim that I'm in withdrawal, and then she's like, oh, okay.
See, that's the best. You just like, and that's the thing is I just tell Kimberly like, yeah.
Do you want to do the list thing?
What's this?
Well, this list I just thought was interesting. Is like fun facts about long distance relationships.
She did her research 5 minutes before we went on, so now we have this thing.
Better than us.
Some of them
did no research. I even forgot I wrote a list of things to talk about.
So, like, as an example, you were talking about communication, which we've already mentioned many times. Well, it says distance can improve communication, and that's based on a study. So there was a study that showed in long-distance relationship couples share more about themselves through different platforms of communication, like texting, chats, video calls. Therefore, they're more comfortable with communicating because they have to, right?
Yeah.
You can't just, like... So we knew that already. This is interesting. Adjusting to distance is easier for women. How do you feel about that? I'll let you say your thing.
I'm wondering, like, in this study, were men like, oh man, I haven't really ever thought about that, and they just started going, while women are like, we contemplate it all the time, but we've learned to
Do you think it's
adjust.
also to do with sex?
That's what I was saying earlier. Yeah, I was all like...
I think it has to do with sex, which I don't... It's 90s. I don't agree with because it's not so much sexual repression. It's like I think I crave intimacy and whatever that looks like in a very big way, whether that's like sex or touch or something. And I would say that a guy as well, but I just think women do crave that more, like that intimacy. I don't know. So I'm questioning that.
I was like questioning that study.
But okay.
I honestly feel like I'm struggling much more than he is.
But maybe you're just better at like expressing it. And
maybe
he's not.
Maybe again, different levels of need. Maybe I think he's just not as needy as I am. So it appears that I'm struggling with it a lot more.
Yeah. I don't know if we can change the language because I do also say those types of terminology. I feel like why do we use that terminology? Because I think it's like
I accept it. I don't think it's negative.
But is needy the right word? Because like realistically, you're saying I would like to be with my partner, and needy sounds very negative.
I use needy all the time, and I don't view it as a negative thing anymore because that's just me. That's just a personality trait. I'm needy.
Just Wendy.
And he has to cope with it, so.
Okay, so another thing is you idolize your partner in a long-distance relationship. Yep. I still probably have a lot of issues with some of my partner's personality traits because of how he handles long-distance relationship, but you definitely, with like the distance, you just think about the good things.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and then whenever I go visit him, like, everyone has little quirks and pet peeves, and it's just certain things you forget about how another person lives, and just, like, normal behavioral things you tend to forget when you're not with them, and then once you're together again, you're like, oh, that's something that bothers me. None of them are deal breakers. It's just you're reminded this person is not flawless, as I've been thinking this whole time that I've not been with them.
And you know what, though? It's funny because I feel like I'm now, as you're saying this, it's the opposite for me. In the fact that when we are together, and we, like, spent 9 months of living together, spoiler alert, mom and dad living together in Sierra Leone.
Dad's not listening to this. Maybe mom.
Whoever will be, like, thinking that's scandalous. Living together in Sierra Leone... Like, there was very few things about his personality that bothered me. And I find, like, with the distance, I forget all those good things, like, how good he is to be together. So I do find, like, I'm a bit flip-floppy on it. I think because we spend months apart, it's really hard.
No.
Really, really hard to remember sometimes the reason I'm together with him, which is because he's a fantastic person.
That's great.
But then when I'm apart, I forget all that.
So yeah, your
stuff.
thing is
I don't idolize him until I'm together, and I'm like, you are amazing. You're everything I want. But when we're apart, I'm like, you're not texting me enough.
But those are circumstantial things about your partner. It's because of the long distance relationship that you feel these things. So
True.
It's not his fault, which is a good sign.
Do you think in that kind of instance where you're like, he's not texting me enough, if he like did reach the level of texting that you were doing, do you think he would think that you're not texting enough? Do you think there's always this like everyone feels like it's unequal in like the communication aspect?
Only because I don't think he cares if I text him very much. That if he came up to my level, he wouldn't think that I wasn't texting him enough. He'd be like, well, it's a lot of texting. Like, it would never be like, she's not texting enough. No. Okay. He used, like, when you think about the beginning days, this is the thing, is I still compare it to the past. The beginning days where you're, like, on the FaceTime for 3 hours, you're texting, like, every 10 seconds, you're a little bit sexier with your text, and then you're like, we're kind of like a married couple that's just not together.
Settle into it. We still FaceTime for like hours and text a lot though.
Well, we can't FaceTime because of the connection, but we do call quite frequently. And that's good. Okay, next one. It's expensive. I think we already talked about that. It is expensive. You think your relationship will last. Interesting. A study done by some psychologists in the University of Denver, couples usually make plans for the future while they're not together, which gives them hope that the relationship will fare. However, the researchers said that being in a long-distance relationship does not guarantee you forever, since more than half of those participants crumble or they lose hope. Okay, a little bit of a turn to
what a choice of vocabulary.
That's funny. Do you remember, probably like 4 years ago?
Okay.
I think I was traveling to go home or whatever, and I ended up like sitting beside this guy on the bus, and we just kind of went to Union Station, and we'd been talking, and I thought he was just being nice because I cannot read people hitting on me. So
I remember this was in Switzerland, right?
Maybe. And so you were talking you were like, Kim, I think he was hitting on you. Yeah. And she's like, why didn't you give him your number? I'm all like, dude lives in Toronto. Like, I want to start a relationship already at a long distance, but that's just what you do. So,
okay,
it was like...
But this is the thing. Sorry, I know you're trying to share something, and I want to hear your opinion, because I think this is really good. Yeah. Somebody who's saying, like, why would you want a long-distance relationship?
Well, not to start that way. I'm fine if it was, like,
if you
if
you have a connection with somebody, however small it can be, and you think that there would be any potential that if you lived two houses away from each other, you would date, even if it's a long distance, you try it. Because I feel like that I have found something very special that I could potentially stop and find somebody else. But I really think that what I have is so special that it was worth starting off a long distance. And I don't know how you feel about it too.
Oh yeah, we met over a Christmas holiday when his family came, because our families are friends.
Secretly, their parents have been trying to probably plot them together.
Oh no, our moms very openly said that they had a conversation before we had met as adults, and she was like, oh, wouldn't it be so great if our kids got married? And his mom was like, oh, I would totally buy them a house, get them all set up and settled. They had this conversation, and then I was like, you guys are ridiculous, I don't even know the guy. And then I met him over Christmas, and we had some sort of feelings, and then his family went away to continue their vacation after staying over at our place for Christmas. We met for maybe a week or two in person, and then from there we developed this relationship into an actual relationship, all long distance.
Yeah.
And at the time I was thinking, oh crap, like why did I do this? This is like the worst thing to do. I even had a full meltdown in the pathobiology department of our school, crying in one of my professor's offices, and one of my friends had to come in and like talk me down, because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I think I really like this guy, but it's going to be like long distance for so long, and I don't know if it's going to be worth it.
But then you can't, I don't know, the second you're kind of smitten, it's very hard to let go. So I obviously, Kimberly, your story is a little bit like you didn't realize he was hitting on you to begin with. So I don't think the connection was super strong on your end. But giving somebody your number that lives in Toronto, you live here.
I've given
You
people
met
my
this
number.
guy?
It doesn't. It's
Think
turned out
about
very
like
poorly.
your next.
So.
Kimberly actually, and as you know from your podcast, is she travels a decent amount. It's not unfathomable for you to find somebody that you're like, shoot, I have a connection.
I think it's almost inevitable for there to be at least at some point in a relationship you have like whether it's a tiny like time frame or a long time frame, you end up having a long distance relationship because of just like career, and we're very like we meet people so much easier now like that are far away, and so like it could be just 2 months, it could be a couple years, but it's
just in terms of context for us, it's going to seem a lot more frequent and a lot more normal because it's like your parents lived in the same region, they saw the same people.
That's how you met.
And it's not
your
like
people,
they were. It's not like one of them was going to move to Europe for 3 years or something.
But I think about how like modern day people have access to a lot of different
We
things.
think it's hard. We're
And
not
it's-
out here
no.
waiting for letters to arrive a
From
month later.
My husband who's at war in like, I don't know, like
Can't even
Vietnam.
imagine.
It's like
Yeah.
so you're right. I think every relationship goes through it a little bit, but it's definitely more common in our generation.
Yeah. I would say to not fear long distance relationships. There's a lot of it's just terrible. But I feel like if it's someone you feel is worth it, it is worth it. That's the point. Like I feel like this has been worth the long distance relationship. It's going to be worth the wait. In 2 years' time, it will have been worth the wait. So
and you got to think like 4 years in relation to potentially like 40 years of being together. It's like, okay.
We're in it for the long haul.
I'm constantly like, in a long distance relationship, you have to establish so early on, like, do we have a future? I guess that's what that like list was saying. Do we have a future?
And with that comes a lot of having to trust someone.
Yeah, when your relationship is like a little baby, and you're like, I have to like give you all of myself because our relationship won't work if we don't commit to like a potential future. It gets very heavy very fast.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah.
So
and
I
think that's
struggled
like
a lot
the
with
funny
that.
thing about long distance relationships. You enter into these discussions that are very heavy for the state you're in your relationship because you kind of have to like, is this going to be worth my time in the end?
And I'm very lucky again to my partner. He is really good at being like, we're gonna be together. We're gonna be together. We're gonna be together. I'm like,
words of affirmation.
but on the other side, I'm like, are we? Can we? Like,
You're so doubtful.
I'm very
I
doubtful.
mean, I tracked mine, so there's no running away from this now. We're together, whether he likes it or not. So
Well,
I don't have.
He could just run back to China. Are you gonna follow him?
I'm Canadian, and I have a 10-year visa to China. I can follow him.
There is no out for you. Okay, I like
His
that.
mom loves me. Like, where is he gonna go?
Ooh, meeting family. That's an interesting one. You just met his family, like, officially, right? The last time you went to China?
larger family.
Well, yeah, I met his grandfather and his uncle for the first time ever last summer. That is also where a wedding banquet is going to be. And I don't know, I feel like our families are just so close to begin with that it just felt like meeting my own extended family.
Yeah. That's really
It's nice.
sweet.
It's nice.
we have yet to actually in person.
And
but
thankfully, with the technology, like with FaceTime, there is a level of pre-meeting, right? Like even if you're not physically. So yes, so hopefully my partner will meet my family. Like that's a desperate cry of mine, and he knows my family in that he knows who they are.
I always
but
get him to say hi to us when we're all on it, and it's very overwhelming. We're very
he gets a little bit overwhelmed because when we do
I get
Google Hangs
overwhelmed.
or FaceTimes where it's all the siblings, because there's 6 of us, it's a lot of intensity, which also his second language is English. His English is amazing. But can you imagine 6 Wattams talking in their own like secret code about funny like TV things they've been watching? He's not understanding. But I have met his family, and the hard part about that is they speak Spanish, right?
So how's your Spanish now?
I've done a little bit of classes. It's very poor. I think someday I'll have to move to wherever he is and like do Spanish there because it's not sticking very well. So I've met his family and his friends speak pretty good English, and his brother and sister-in-law speak a level of English. It's just that his mom, who is a little feisty lady, I love her. She is like amazing. She's like, his father passed away from cancer when he was like 19, so she kind of like raised these boys like after that, and she's just like, I like her a lot. So I want to be able to speak Spanish, but I also feel like if I spoke Spanish, I wouldn't be able to keep up with her. I'd be like,
It's hard. It's hard, but in that environment, you'll probably get good at it.
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, so meeting family is like a big step, I think, for long distance relationships, because it's not just something that can be like, oh, we're going to go to this restaurant next weekend.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a big to-do. Actually, I want to hear what you think about your sister being in such a serious long distance relationship and you've never met the person. Does that bother you?
Yeah, and a friend. And a close friend.
Because she's never met him
No,
either.
just none of my friends
Yeah, just
have.
over like video a little bit. Except for her partner and I, we watch a lot of movies. So
Watch a lot of
through
TV,
Wendy, we kind of
a lot
like
of
talk to each other
movies.
that way.
Yeah.
Honestly, for some reason, I don't think it's that weird. Because even I think meeting our oldest sister's boyfriend, now husband, I don't think we met him for a really long time. And I also, if I had someone that I was pretty committed to, I probably wouldn't invite them back.
Very
Maybe
early.
maybe the siblings would earlier, but like, again, to have them meet all of us in one place when we're at
my
our
partner
craziest.
has said he's like in his ideal world, because he gets a little bit overwhelmed with a lot of people, and our family's pretty overwhelming. Like, he would like to meet a few at a time, and I think that would be great. So
Cute.
I have some like.
Can you just portion off the Wattams for me to
Like, meet the siblings for sure first before meeting the parents, and then meeting our family on multiple occasions before meeting any extended family.
Do you have strategically which siblings you would introduce him to first?
In my ideal world, if we were dreaming, and you can edit all this out, but if I was dreaming, and we have talked about this, my partner and I, so he's from a beautiful country that has a couple wonderful like destination places. So we have talked about how great, when we went to this one place together, we've been there multiple times, we were at a restaurant, our favorite restaurant, and he said this, which like just makes me just so emotional. He's like, I could just see like all of your siblings here at this table, and we could like get to know each other in this context. And I was just like, yes,
so
please.
sweet.
And so he's like, what if we like had them all come down for a week or something like that? And I was like, yes, because it's much easier for everybody to come down, again, because they're Canadian, and it's a destination that could be like a holiday because it's beaches and like sun.
Is
and so
this with or without your parents?
without my parents, but I think we would have to invite my parents.
I feel like Linda
I do
would
just
be a
wanna
little
point out-
hurt if you didn't.
No, for sure. And
I want to point out she completely avoided my actual question.
who to go first. I think, to be honest,
So
okay,
it's like dodged all of them.
I think I don't really feel like there's anybody I wouldn't want him to meet. That's the thing, is like I think there's something about each one of my siblings. I mean this all sincerity because I've thought about this ad nauseum. Is like each of my siblings are people that I would not be afraid of him meeting to begin with. And then I also think like what's lovely is I like Wendy, Jamie, my brother-in-law, and their son to be part of that, because Jamie has been the only significant other in our family. And I think Jamie is
so
actually
long.
pretty excited about
Your
the
mom's
fact.
probably just getting real antsy about more grandchildren.
I really think my mom knows we're slow. But yeah, so there's something about like the fact that I think Jamie would appreciate another person that's not just one of the Wattam crazies.
Yeah.
And
Maybe he
then
won't feel as left
I
out.
think my partner would also feel very like comfortable with him because they don't understand how we talk as a family very well. So I would love it if it was just like first siblings for a little bit, and my parents would be fine as well. Like honestly, I want my mom to meet him. I actually would ideally want my mom to meet him first for like coffee would be my ideal situation. But that
without
just
your
doesn't make
dad?
any. I'm sorry. I don't think my dad's gonna watch this, right? He doesn't, right? I'm sorry, but my dad is like the person that I need to like really slowly introduce to a person, just because he's a bit much. He's a bit much.
You've met him, Wendy.
He's a little bit much. Yeah. We have to eat our pastries.
Yes.
I'm so
I've been
hungry.
looking at them and just very
My
hungry.
mouth. I might not be sweating, but I'm salivating.
I'm salivating and sweating. I'm so dehydrated.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Nudity. Thank you to my awesome sister, Loren, for joining us for this conversation. If you want to find us, we're on Instagram at Nudity Podcast. And you can also listen to us audio version on iTunes and PodBean, or Wendy, her editing skills.
Woo.
She's just bringing them up a notch.
Listen. I am kicking it up. The videos are going to be something to look forward to.
Okay,
I'm getting all of Kim's eye rolls. All of them. Every single one. Massive zoom-ins.
she might do little animations, which in this video she can just put over my body, since I did not contribute a whole lot, which was totally what was going to happen. But you can find us on YouTube and all those places at Nudity Podcast.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.